Today in court we had a conference before a federal judge. We, on Monday afternoon, filed a petition in court in order to bring Mahmoud back to New York City under the jurisdiction of this federal court in the Southern District of New York. Mahmoud was essentially disappeared in the middle of the night on Saturday evening from his home in Columbia University housing, and he was within hours by the early morning on Sunday morning, disappeared out from under us and taken to Louisiana. And so one of the first moves that we made is to move to bring him back, to ask the court basically to compel the government to bring him back from Louisiana to New York, and that fight is ongoing, is the long short of it. Today we asked the judge to consider those arguments, and we've set out a expeditious deadline. We will have to battle this out in the next week, because ultimately our goal is to bring him back to his wife, to bring him back under the jurisdiction of the federal court here in New York, and ultimately to have him released. It's unclear at this stage exactly what the government's position is. The government's position is that this is not the right court for this matter. But ultimately what we know is that the government, within hours of disappearing Mahmoud from his home on Saturday night, was moving him around and then all the way to another state, and to one of the most notoriously bad detention centers in this country. So the government's position remains unclear, but ours is. He belongs here, where he has a petition that was filed within hours of him being imprisoned on Saturday night, in the early morning of Sunday, challenging his unlawful detention, and very soon thereafter he was shipped off to Louisiana. It is actually unfathomable that a green card holder would have immigration provisions that are so obscure waged against him in order to strip him of legal permanent residence and be sort of detained over the course of hours in this way. It is unfathomable. And it's not just because he's a legal permanent resident. I mean, ultimately what we're seeing here is retaliatory action of the most extreme variety against an organizer because of his activism for Palestinian rights, his activism against an unfolding genocide today. And this sets a precedent that no one should ignore. None of the laws on the books that the US government is pointing to today can justify targeting somebody for their exercise of First Amendment rights. It's very important to understand that universities have a choice in how they respond to government agencies, law enforcement agencies in this moment of mass repression. Universities have a choice, and unfortunately Columbia has repeatedly demonstrated that they are unwilling to make the right choice, and on the contrary, they are willing to collaborate with law enforcement agencies like ICE and others against their students. And I think it's really important that they cease that practice, because their students come first, their faculty and staff come first. They are educational institutions first and foremost, and they have responsibility.